Labor's electric vehicle dream is now a nightmare for everyday Aussies. As of now, Labor's new vehicle emissions tax comes into effect, and here's what it means for you and I.
Everyone thinks this is some kumbaya moment the government's bringing in vehicle emission standards, and what they're saying is they expect every Australian, bar about 1 or 2% of us, to be driving EVs by 2050, which is nonsense. So this is a tax that you're going to pay on the purchase price of a new vehicle because of the ideology of Anthony Albanese.
Joining me now is Liberal MP Garth Hamilton. Garth, good to see you. Thank you for joining me. Labor always says everything is cheaper under their green dreams, don't they? It certainly hasn't happened with our power bills, but now cars are their next target.
Look, this is the Labor problem in a nutshell. They don't understand the difference between cost and price. They think they can go in and tinker with price. The cost is still there to be borne by somebody. This is really hard to accept in an area like mine. I'm just right next door to David Littleproud up here in Queensland. Drive along our streets, it's full of Hiluxes, Prados, big cars that people need to get by and do their jobs out here in a regional community. And these are the people who are going to be paying this tax. I think it's a crazy idea for the Labor government to be going ahead with this, this push for us all, almost all of us, to have EVs. In fact, I think we should start renaming EVs for what some of them actually are, which is disposable cars. I mean, these are cars who are designed to have almost one used battery. And when the battery runs out, the cost of the car drops so far that it's no longer affordable to replace the battery. They're just going to be disposed of and people will buy a new car. And we're supposed to believe that these disposable cars are somehow better for the environment. It's absolutely crazy. Only in a Labor fever dream could you come up with this sort of stuff.
Yeah, and aside from the battery, it's not like we have the proper infrastructure in place in this country right now to deal with electric vehicles. So it's a sham from the very beginning. Now, look, let's talk about the economy. Jim Chalmers has this week been saying that the economy will perform better this year, that we are past the worst of it. I'm not sure if households feel the same, but now there are worries that 10,000 businesses will go bust by the time the next parliament sits. In fact, insolvencies will continue at the same rate since July last year, which was on average 50.8% higher than the year to June last year. As you can see by that graphic there, the number of insolvencies under the coalition in blue and then in red, quite a stark difference there. But this is an ominous warning, Garth.
It really is. It's bad news for businesses and it's bad news for the people employed by these businesses. I was talking to someone today who owns a nursery just around the corner from me. And he's one of these businesses that's right on the verge. I asked him what are the big drivers for him, that's going to keep him in business right now. It's the cost of labour. All these changes we've seen in IR coming through, the demand that NDIS is putting onto our labour market locally here in Toowoomba, for example, has been a huge driver in wages. And he just can't keep up. But people are still buying. This is the interesting thing. Our economy is still going. People are still out there purchasing. It's just businesses are unable to make the same level of profit that they could previously. Now they're at a point where they're losing money, they're going backwards, making some really tough decisions. And I've got to tell you, for across Australia, we're driven by small businesses, and a lot of these ones are the ones that are going to go first. And that's going to be a huge hit to our economy.
It certainly will be. It's a real big worry. Now, Australia's mortgage interest bill has tripled under the weight of 12 rate hikes in the more than 2 years since Labor won office. It's now up to an extra $26,000 to $50,000 for average home loans since 2022. I mean, hardly surprising, Garth, but, this just shows you how tough families are doing it out there.
If you've got to find between $26,000 and $50,000 extra per year, I don't care what level of society you're at, that is your number one priority. That is the number one thing you're going to be focusing on. That's a hell of a lot of money that you've got to take out of your disposable income. You've got to make some really tough decisions just to afford that. And we've got to remember, this is the government, this is a Prime Minister who came in promising, of all things, cheaper mortgages. It was extraordinary. It was a wild promise to make at the time. He got a lot of favourable coverage. A lot of media turned a blind eye for the first year or so and didn't hold him to account on this one. But now it's coming back and we're all seeing it. We're feeling the weight of Labor's decisions, the hurt that's being passed on to families across kitchen tables as they sit down and work out, how are we going to get through 2025? 2024 has been bad. Jim's telling us that it's going to get a lot better. I don't think it is. I think it's going to be really, really tough for some time yet because this government has absolutely no plans to turn things around.
No, it's a complete fantasy. As I said, I'm not sure how many households actually believe when the Treasurer says that things have turned around, because they're the ones feeling it every single day. Now, I want to talk about border protection. 2 more asylum boats reached Australia in November. In fact, Australia's asylum boat tally for last year is incomplete, but the final figure will come out as the highest since 2013, when 300 asylum seekers reached Australia by boat and Labor lost government. Garth, I've got to say the ghosts of the Rudd years, they're circling the Labor government. They've been circling for some time. Why has border security always been a thorn in Labor's side? They can never get it right.
They really can't get it right. This is something that's going to plague this government too, it would seem. But isn't this the most undertold story of 2024? I mean, we haven't heard about this all the way through while this tally has been increasing. And I think the government's very happy, quite frankly, that they've got away with this story not being told, that their policy, and we've seen that, they've reduced the amount of air and seaborne surveillance on our northern borders. And this is the result. We're seeing this increased number of boats coming through again. There is an interesting thing too as we head to this next election. If the polling's right, we could be in for that, something very similar to that second term of Rudd-Gillard years, where we have Labor-aligned independents pushing the government even further to the left. So you can imagine the chaos and how much worse this could get under a continuation of this government. It may be that we end up one day looking back on Rudd-Gillard years and saying, well, they weren't that bad in comparison.
Oh, geez. Look, Garth, we don't even want to think of that, but at the rate we're going, nothing would surprise me. Garth Hamilton, good to see you. Thank you very much for joining me on the show this evening.